All right, welcome to lesson 3.7 on the fraction, decimals, and percent topic. We are going to be relating fractions and decimals and percents again. We started in 3.1 and 3.2 and did a little bit of this stuff. So now we're going to go a little bit more into the percent side of things. So we're going to work with some percents as they apply in society, and then students will review how fractions, decimals, and percents are related and do some converting between the three. So far we've discussed fractions and decimals and how to convert between each of them. Now it's time to introduce the third one, which is percents. So when we first introduced the concept of decimals, fractions, and percents, we found out that they were the same thing. And if you remember back, this is part of your notes from back then, was 3 to 6 boxes shaded, so the fraction is 3/6, which reduces to 1/2. As a decimal, it's 0.5, and as a percent, it's 50%. So we know those are all the same thing. They're all the same way of expressing how much is shaded in that particular box. Okay, so that brings us to the next concept of what is a percent. Okay, so a percent is a comparison to the number of 100. We usually say that it's the number out of 100, and we use percents to compare numbers in the same way so that the understanding is just easier. People understand 30% off easier than 3/10 off. It's much easier to think of a test marker being 64% rather than 16 out of 25. And of course, it's a lot easier to think of a 12% improvement rather than 0.12 to 1 improvement. So percents give us another tool to help us do comparisons, and because everything's always compared to 100, we get comfortable doing it, so you don't have to, you don't have to learn something new. So where have you seen percents? Well, percents are used in shopping for sales, 30% off, weight gain or weight loss. We talk about business profits. They've had a 20% increase in profits. These are all things where we use percentages quite a lot. I mean, in addition to school, when you want to know what your mark is, I tell you that your mark is like 50% or 100% or 25% or hopefully never that low. But you can relate it very easily. So a percent is a number out of 100. So if you think of a box of 100 cells, you can create fractions out of 100. So here's a box that has 100 squares. It's 10 by 10. So if you take a look at this and I asked you what fraction is shaded, well, you could count them up. There is 50 out of 100. What is this as a decimal? 50 divided by 100 is 0.5. So since percent is out of 100, that means that this must have 50% shaded. So that we know that three things, 50%, 0.5, and 50 out of 100 must be the same thing. Now, you've seen this before with the 3/6, right? Now, all I've done now is rather than having 3 out of 6 boxes, now we have 100 boxes. It's just a bigger set of boxes shaded. So let's break this down now into smaller parts and talk about how to get from a fraction to a percent. To convert a fraction to a percent, there's basically two methods which can be used. Since percent is out of 100, you can convert the fraction to an equivalent fraction with the denominator of 100. Now this works sometimes, but not others. So for example, what is 3 out of 4 as a percent? Well, you can think of 3/4 and try to think of what is its equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. So how do you get from 4 to 100? Remember this? We multiply it by 20. So if you multiply this by 20, then you have to multiply this by 20. Okay? Actually, sorry, that should be 25. Okay? So multiply this by 25. So 4 times 25 is 100, so 3 times 25 is 75. Okay? These are supposed to be 5s. So we have 3 quarters is actually 75 over 100. Now anything over 100 is a percent because it's already converted. In fact, if you look at it, there's the 1 and there's the 2 zeros. The percent sign actually is 100. So since percent sign is always out of 100, we have 75%. Now, that works well when you can figure out how to get from the 4 to 100. It doesn't always work that way. So there has to be another way. Well, fortunately, there is an easier way, in my opinion. You can take 3/4, the fraction, use your calculator to divide the fraction out to get a decimal, and then take that decimal and multiply it by 100. It becomes 2 lines Okay, now I put everything in one line here, but I'm going to have you do it in a separate way. I'm going to have you do it in two lines. So to get 3/4 to be a percent, you're going to go 3 divided by 4 is equal to 0.75, and you can use your calculator to get there. And then 0.75 times 100 is 75%. Okay, now this is going to be working, so it's going to be marked out of 4 marks. What you did, what you got, what you did, what you got. Okay. Now the good thing about this one is that this will work for everything, and you don't have an awful lot of work to do in sort of trying to think, how do I get a number into 100? For example, 4 to 100 multiplying by 25, that was pretty easy, but what if this is a 6? 6 doesn't go into 100 very easily, so you have to do a lot more work. So this method here, by dividing and multiplying, that's actually a lot easier. Now, how do I get 0.75 to be 100? Well, you can take a look through this if you wish. It's not a big deal, really. I'm just creating an equivalent fraction. Since 0.75 is the decimal, every number is over 1. I'm creating an equivalent fraction by multiplying both the top and the bottom by 100, and that's how I get 75 over 100. You don't have to worry too much about that. Let's worry about the 2 steps you need to do to get a fraction into a percent. So first thing is 7 over 8. I need you to convert 7 over 8 into a decimal. So first thing I want you to do is go 7 divided by 8, and you're going to divide that out. And then I want you to take that answer, I want you to multiply by 100 and give me the percent. So do that right now and restart the recording when you get done. Okay, you should be done by now. 7 divided by 8, 0.875. Okay, 0.875 times it by 100, you're going to get 87.5%. And yes, you can have 0.5%. So you have to copy it down. You do not round it off. Okay, so there's your answer. What you did, divided. What you got, 0.875. What you did, multiplied. What you got, 87.5%. Now don't forget, this now has a unit. That unit is the percent sign, and you have to include it, because what you're telling someone who's looking at it is this is based out of 100. So they have to use that to compare it. All right, let's have you go to the next question. I want you to do 13 over 20, pause the recording, and then do that question. All right, so first thing you need to do is to convert to a decimal. 13 divided by 20, 0.65. 0.65 multiplied by 100, 65, and include the percent. What you did, what you got, what you did, what you got, 4 marks. Okay? So, let's look at the next question. Bob received 7 marks out of 35 on his math test. What percent is this? Well, first thing you have to do is think of what fraction 7 out of 35 would be. So, this is going to be 7 out of 35 marks. So there's your fraction, 7 over 35. So now what I'd like you to do is to finish the question. So pause the recording and finish this one off. Okay, so to convert this to a decimal, you're going to go 7 divided by 35, and that is 0.2. Finally, you're going to convert the 0.2 to a percent by multiplying by 100, and that is 20%. So Bob received a mark of 20% on his math test. Remember to include the percent sign. All right, move on to the next question. It is 217 kilometers from Sedgwick to Bob's farm near Edmonton. If Bob has driven 144 kilometers on his way to the farm, what percentage of the distance has he traveled so far? Round your answer to the nearest percent. So we get a couple of things we have to do here. First off, we have to figure out what the fraction is, and then remember to round it to the nearest percent. So 144 kilometers traveled out of a total of 217 means that your fraction is going to be 144 over 217. Now, I want you to pause the recording, and I want you to see if you can finish off this question. Okay, so first we have to do is convert it to a decimal. So that's going to be 144 divided by 217. When you put this as a decimal, you're going to get something which fills your calculator. 0.6635947. Okay? Now, convert this to a percent, you have to multiply it by 100. So you have 0.66359447 times 100 is going to give you 66.359447. Now it says rounded to the nearest percent. Remember, the nearest percent would be right here. So does the 3 cause the 6 to go up? And the answer to that is no. It has to be 5 or greater, and it's not 5 or greater, which means this is going to be 66%. So, as a question, because this is a word problem, 66% of the way is how far Bob has driven. All right, turn the page. Bob wants to grow to be 2 meters tall. He's now 1.45 meters. What percent of the way is he so far? Round your answer to the nearest tenth. So, pause the recording, solve this question. All right, first thing you need to do is to create the fraction. He wants to grow to be 2 meters tall, so this is 1.45 out of 2. Okay, now create the decimal. 1.45 divided by 2, and when you do that, you're going to get 0.725. Now I just want to give you a little bit of explain on that. Normally we don't put decimals in fractions, it's not allowed. But we're going to do it because it helps us to solve the question. Okay? So if you normally wouldn't have a decimal there. So now I've got the decimal, 0.725. I want to convert that to a percent. So 0.725 times 100 gives me 72.5%. Now it says here, round the answer to the nearest tenth. Now this is kind of a tricky question because if you take a look at it, it's already in the nearest tenth. So the reality is this one doesn't have to change. On some test questions, on achievement tests and stuff, you'll see round to the nearest tenth if needed. So you have to be able to tell whether something is rounded or not. Now remember, this is 72.5. I have to include my percent, otherwise I would be losing marks and be incorrect. So far, so good. Now, let's talk about converting percents to decimals and fractions. So now that we have gone from a fraction to a percent, let's go the other way. Now, the thing to understand about a percent is always out of 100. So no matter what percent you get, it's always over 100. I don't care if it's like 675% or 0.22%. It's always over 100 because it's a comparison to the number of 100. So the question is, what is 20% as a fraction? Well, 20% is 20 out of 100. Okay? So now that you have it as 20 over 100, you're in fraction. You've done the job except for you have to reduce it to its simplest form. So 20 over 100, you got to find what goes into both 20 and 100. If you can't find out right off the bat about using 20, start using numbers that you can. They both end in 0, so they can be divided by 10. So that would be 2 over 10. This is both even. You can divide by 2. That gets you 1 over 5. You can step it down one step at a time and double check it with your ABC button. Okay? Now, let's go to the next one. Bob received a mark of 40% on this math test. What fraction of the questions did he get correct? So, write this as a fraction out of 100. So, that's 40 over 100. Now, reduce it to its lowest form. I'll let you pause the recording, reduce this, and then we'll see if you're correct. Okay, so 40 out of 100. I'm going to move over here. 40 over 100. I'm going to divide by 10 because they both end in 0. That becomes 4 over 10. Okay. And now I can divide this by 2 because they're both even. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my lowest form is going to be 2/5. So, because it's a word problem, Bob got 2/5 of the questions correct. All right. Moving on. Okay, so here are 3 simple questions. Write the following percent as a fraction with a denominator of 100. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to do these. Mark, get set, go. Time's up. Now, because percent is out of 100, every fraction, every one of these is just a number over 100. That's why I only give you 5 seconds. If you knew that a percent was out of 100, putting that as a fraction became very easy. Okay. Now, converting percents to decimals. 75%, sorry, 75% is what number as a decimal? So since 75% is out of 100, you can think of it as a fraction of 75 over 100. Now remember, a fraction is a divide question that we have yet to do. So 75 over 100 can be converted to be a decimal simply by dividing. So you can do this without writing the fraction down. You can just go 75 divided by 100 and put the answer down. So this is the work you have to do, what you did, what you got. So what is 60% as a decimal? Well, let's take a look. 60% is 60 divided by 100, 0.6. That's all you have to write down, what you did and what you got. Okay, there are 3 examples there. I want you to write the following percents as a decimal. Pause the recording, and when you're done, restart it. Okay, time's up. Let's take a look. I got 24%, so that's 24 divided by 100. And that's equal to 0.24. 16 divided by 100 is equal to 0.16. And 76 divided by 100 is equal to 0.76. Okay? To help you out without having to use your calculator, if you think about 24, the decimal is at the end. When you divide by 100, the decimal goes to the left, and you go the same amount of decimal places as you have zeros. So since there's two zeros there, you're going to go 1, 2 bubble jumps. Just a little bit of a hint for you there next time you're doing it. When you multiply by 100, you bubble jump the other way. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Converting decimals to a percent. So what is 0.75 as a percent? Well, if you go from a percent to a decimal, and we divide it by 100, guess what you have to do to go the other way? Well, you have to go the opposite mathematics. So instead of dividing by 100, we're just going to multiply by 100. So 0.75 as a percent becomes 0.75 times 100, which is basically 75%. Okay, so I'd like you to take a look at this one. Okay, this becomes 0.657 times 100 is equal to 65.7, and yes, you can have a decimal and a percent. Okay, so there is 2 of them that I did. I want you to do the next 3. Pause the recording, show me what you did, what you got. Okay, so let's take a look. 0.54, so that is 0.54 times 100, and you end up getting 54%. This is 0.346 times 100. You end up getting 34.6%. This is 0.7765 times 100. You end up getting 77.65%. Okay? Josh got 47 out of 59 on his test. Marcy stated she got 80% on her test. Who received the higher mark, and by how many percent? So what I'd like you to do is figure out Josh's percent. You can pause the recording and do that right now. Okay. Now Josh got 47 out of 59. So we have to go 47 divided by 59 to convert this into a decimal. Okay. Now that gives you 0.7966101, etc. And now I got to take that and multiply it by 100. So that means that Josh got 79.66. Now I'm going to round this off right there. See, the 1 doesn't cause the 6 to change, so I'm just going to go to 2 decimal places. 79.66%. Okay? Remember, when you're not told, you always round to 2 decimal places. Okay? Now, Marcy got 80%. She received the higher mark. I kind of gave it away there, didn't I? Okay? How much higher was her mark? Well, in order to find out what her mark, how much higher it is, you've got to take 80 and 79.66. Now remember, we did subtractions of decimals before. You have to put the decimals, line them up. You add zeros to the end here, and then you have to do some borrowing. Okay? 0 take away 6 can't be done here. So I've got to go all the way over here to the 8, take away 1, that becomes a 7. This becomes a 10. Now that can become a 9, so this can become a 10. And that becomes a 9, so this can become a 10. 10 take away 6 is 4. 9 take away 6 is 3. Bring your decimal down. 9 take away 6 is 3, and 7 take away 7 is 0. Oh, sorry. I think I wrote the question down wrong. Let's back up here. I knew you caught that, but I didn't. Alright, so that means 79 take away 79 is 0. So, of course, the answer is 0.34, and there is a unit here, percent. So her mark was 0.34%. Higher than Josh's. Remember not to round off. If you had rounded off here at the beginning, you would have gotten 0.80 or 0.8, and that would have given you 80%, and then you would say they're tied, when in fact they're not. Okay, so get started on your assignment. If you have any questions, come and see me at school. We'll stop this recording. We'll see you in the next lesson.